Hi, guys and ladies. Today we're talking about love bombing. Watch out for it because us dating after 50s, we can be kind of susceptible to it. It is a term that was coined back in the 1970s by a church, believe it or not. And it was coined back then and really used to identify behaviors that cults used to recruit people. They were told by leadership to really just gush over them, okay? Tell them how wonderful they are. So this was used by cults to get people in it back in the 1970s. It's sure come a long way since then. In addition to being used by cults, it's also used by gangs and pimps. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is how sure you are of yourself and how confident you are in yourself and making decisions. So let's dive into it and go over a couple of warning signs, what it's all about, and how to handle it in case it comes your way. So what is love bombing actually? I'm going to read you the definition so that it's very clear, because I've never been involved in this. Well, let me stop right there. I probably have way back in the day. The only example of it I have is a really dear friend to me who got involved with somebody, and I saw that they were not healthy dynamics between the two of them. But when I read love bombing definition, I thought, oh, that's what that is. I can see it in person. So it's a really good idea to really be cognizant and observant of other couples' relationships so you can identify things that might be warning signs in your relationships when they come your way, or if you're starting one now. So let's get into the definition. Love bombing refers to a manipulative tactic where someone showers another person with excessive affection, compliments, and attention in the early stages of the relationship. Their aim is to quickly build intense intimacy and dependency, often as a precursor to controlling or abusive behavior later on. Essentially, it's a form of emotional manipulation to gain control over someone by making them feel deeply attached very quickly. Okay, so what are some of the characteristics of love bombing? Well, as I've mentioned before, lots of compliments gushing over you. I've never met anyone like you. You complete me. We may think that's a romantic thing, but that's kind of a warning sign. Tell them that, you can't live without them, that your life will never be the same. How did they ever meet you? I can't believe I met somebody like you. You're the most amazing thing. You're my soulmate. You're the perfect woman for me. You're the perfect man for me. So those are lovely phrases to hear, just in moderation. One of my key phrases I use almost every day, everything in moderation, right? That's the way you live life. Same with these compliments. If they're just like coming after you right and left and you're feeling a bit uncomfortable, that's your first sign that there could be something amiss. It could be interpreted as love at first sight. That does happen, and many couples, they live forever together after love at first sight. And that's kind of the tricky part, because it could be love at first sight or it could be something manipulative for the future. You just don't know. And that's the really dangerous part about love bombing, is that you don't know until it's almost too late to get out of it. So some other characteristics of love bombing are moving too fast in the relationship. On the fourth date, you're already talking about moving in, or that person is talking about moving in, or they want the relationship to progress very quickly. And so they're going to be talking about the future, moving in, whatever plans might be on the horizon for you. Another characteristic of love bombing is communication. Intense communication, continual communication, constant communication, communication on social media, just continual checking in or sending love notes, but it's this continual communication. Texting, calling, messages, more than you're comfortable with. Maybe they're being very lavish with their gifts. Maybe they're promising you they'll pay for things. They're very attention seeking, so they're looking to offer those gifts in a way that impress you and or others. Another characteristic is idealization, the idea that this is the one and only perfect relationship. I can't believe I found you in the whole world. You're the only one for me. How comfortable are you when they say that? Now, when you're in a relationship for 4 and 5 months and these things are happening, then it's a healthy relationship. So why is it dangerous? Well, first of all, what happens is after the initial honeymoon phase, when the perpetrator or love bomber knows that they have you, they have their claws in you, it sets up a cycle of abuse. They become passive aggressive, they become very selfish, they resent time that you spend away from caring for their needs and what they want. And so this cycle starts. And it's a cycle of dependency too, because you start becoming dependent on those love bombs and they're dependent on you serving all their needs. So you have this cycle of love bombing and then abuse, and love bombing and abuse, love bombing and abuse. And it goes up and down like that. And it's a cycle of dependency that you can't get out of. And it erodes your self-esteem, because pretty soon all you're doing is caring for that person. The rest of your life has disappeared. This was the sad thing that I saw in my friend. The more and more she talked about how much he loved her, and he said, "You were the one, and I can't believe I found you." I mean, he is textbook. And he was just so wonderful with her when they met, and he moved into her home, and they lived together. Never saw the guy. He'd come out and he'd say hello maybe in passing, but you never saw him. It was really interesting. That was my red flag that something was not right, because she was telling me about how great he was and how wonderful he was. He even, after a couple of months, took her to Hawaii. She had never been on a trip like that. She was just enamored by this man. And they went to Hawaii and they came back, and things were great for the first 3 to 6 months. But I noticed that, everything was fine for the first 6 months, and then things started to erode. And she would say things to me like, he sent me a text and I showed it to my son, and my son said that's abusive, and I didn't think it was. But now this text that he just sent me, that's definitely abusive. She just continued to receive those abusive texts. And pretty soon she was not around. And when she was around, she was talking about him, or she was telling me the next thing that she needed to do to take care of him, or she was telling me how he felt, all of which are very codependent. And I am a textbook case of codependency. I've learned I'm not codependent anymore, but most of us are, 80% of us are codependent. So I kind of just lumped it into that codependency and didn't think another thing about it until I learned about love bombing. And it is more than codependency. So we've lost a friendship over it because there's no room for anybody else in her life but him. And she's lost her family over it. Please beware. Please watch out. I know we all want love so desperately, but don't give it up for everything. Decide where you're willing to bend. And when you bend that way and you bend past where you're comfortable, stop and think, please, I care about you. Okay, so let's get on to how do we handle it. Number one, as always, trust your gut. Really listen to it. I mean, all of my mistakes in my life have been because I didn't listen to my gut. I didn't trust it. You have to listen to yourself. And no matter how good it feels when he's love bombing you or when she's love bombing you, you got to take a step back and say, what's real about this and what isn't? Number two, set your boundaries. If you have to write them down and say them to yourself every night like a prayer, do it. Set your boundaries. Are you willing to have someone come and live in your house with you without any restrictions, whatever they want? When are you willing to do that? In the first month that you meet somebody? In the third month you meet somebody, or after a year? What makes sense for you? But set your boundaries. What other boundaries? What about texting? What about calling you? What about checking in on you? What are you doing? Why are you with friends? Why are you with your family? How do you handle that? Have a little pre-thought into that. Another way you can handle it is talk to someone you trust. Talk to a friend that's seen you together. Listen to other people when they tell you something doesn't seem right. In most cases, it takes a lot of courage to tell someone that you think there's something wrong with their relationship. I mean, most of us would say, that's not our business and we should butt out of it. And keep your mouth shut. But if somebody asks you, then you should be honest about it. Say, maybe you should look at this a different way. Or I just noticed, he texts you an awful lot. Or, that comment he made to you the other day, that wasn't very kind. Just little things like that can help somebody. But we're talking about you being the love bomb-y talking to someone else. So get some help. With this friend of mine, there was an incident with her son. And her son told her, this is not a good man. He's not a good man. He's not good for you. I care about you. That was the gist of the conversation. And she ignored that. No, nobody understands him the way I do. Well, of course not, because you're in his claws. So of course nobody's going to understand, but other people outside of it can see what's happening. And that's why it's important to talk to somebody else when you think you're getting into dangerous territory. It's okay to admit it. Get some help. Remember, love bombing is about drawing you in, sucking you in, holding on to you, getting you to be dependent on that kind of relationship, communication, and behaviors. And what happens in the end? Well, most love bombing situations leave with them, the love bomber, disappearing quietly into the night. And if you try and get them back because now you're dependent, you could start the cycle all over again, which gives them even more power. Oh, goodness. I hope none of you out there are being love bombed. I think the reason I never got love bombed is because I called those people Klingons. And I have no tolerance for Klingons. None at all. So they kind of are Klingon-ish in the beginning. So please pay attention. If it's too good to be true, it most likely is. I'm not saying that person is not genuine. They could very well be. And the way you know is once you get past those initial months of your relationship with them, and they're still checking in on you all the time, giving you lavish gifts, making you feel like queen of the world without any abusive behaviors, without any behaviors that are making you feel bad about yourself, then you got something that's worth keeping. So keep it. Be careful out there. Keep looking for the love that you want. Just take care of yourself along the way. Thanks for watching. See you next time.